Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and this is not an episode of Discourse in Magic. I lied to you. This is an episode of Sleights and Men. It's the name of an incredible magic podcast. They've been running for a little while now. I think they have a couple dozen episodes, and they're awesome. They interview great magicians. It's two really, really smart dudes based out of the UK. And like I like to say, if you like this podcast, if you like people talking about magic in your ears, then you may like that one. And this isn't the full episode. You can go check out the full episode at The Daily Magician or at Of Sleights and Men. But this is a little snippet from our conversation. And to be honest, it was super interesting. They turned the tables on me and asked me some questions that I think I've never been asked before. I was talking quite a bit about magic, about entrepreneurship, who I kind of learned from, and a little bit about the transition that I've gone through between being obsessed with magic and tricks to being a little bit more obsessed with entrepreneurship. So this has been a ton of fun. It was a great episode, and I think that you guys will really enjoy it. Here it is, a small snippet from Of Sleights and Men. Enjoy.
So you said you started the Toronto Magic Company pretty much a similar time to Discourse. This is interesting because as a listener to the podcast, there's kind of a distinction, right? Where Toronto is a local company, Discourse is a global company. And so in my mind, Discourse was always the bigger thing, right? It's like, oh, because I listen to it, it must be the big company, right? This is the one that's the real project. But from your angle, which one has actually been more work and you put the most time and sort of sweat equity into?
Great question. Let me give a little bit of context to how Toronto Magic Company came to be, which is that I'm only half of the Toronto Magic Company. Ben Train is the other half. And when I started the Discourse in Magic podcast, I was only half of the Discourse in Magic podcast, and Tyler Williams was the other half. And he's since moved on to do non-magic things, and he's crushing it. So just for a little bit of context, when the Toronto Magic Company launched, it was to do an open mic magic show happening in Toronto. So at the time, Discourse in Magic, at the time I was running three things. I was a full-time magician, and my side hustle was Discourse in Magic. And the side hustle of my side hustle was the Toronto Magic Company. So, when it started, it's very hard for me to say like what was the bigger thing, or what was like, I guess me doing magic personally was the bigger thing. As time has gone on, I spend probably most of my day working on the Toronto Magic Company because I'm performing, I'm like running the business, I'm like, doing a lot of different stuff. And Ben is obviously doing a ton of other things as well. But with the podcast, one of the things that I've been really moved by is making it something that doesn't take a full-time amount of work. So, an episode comes out every week. I send out emails maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but I now have some people like assistants and helpers who are doing a lot of the things that would have taken me like a lot of time, like actually scheduling some of the posts. I don't edit the podcast anymore. I have phenomenal editor, make it seem like there's a team, one guy, who does it for me. So, now it does kind of feel like the bulk of my time is spent on the Toronto Magic Company, and, maybe a certain percentage of my time is kind of spent, doing the Discourse in Magic podcast. In reality, it kind of started as juggling 3 things, transitioned into juggling 2 things, and it's hard for me to say which one is whatever. They're both kind of awesome and fun, and Discourse in Magic, I don't really worry about its fiscal success. Like I do some coaching through it, which is wonderful, but it's a free podcast, so like I'm not really super worried. The Toronto Magic Company is a business. If it's not bringing in money or selling tickets, or I'm not doing virtual magic shows or whatever, then like it's failing, right? Like it's not working. So I think I maybe, I don't know if that's a good answer to the question, but now probably Toronto Magic Company is my main thing, and Discourse in Magic is my side hustle. And basically, Toronto Magic Company has absorbed all of the solo performing that I was doing outside of the Toronto Magic Company. So that kind of like I perform inside of TMC, and then I kind of do magician-centric and interviews and stuff like that inside of the podcast.
I'm actually really interested by that because we are big fans of entrepreneurship and of just business building and all of that. And one of the first things you learn is that you should never split your focus. Well, there's one of the accepted things is just focus on one thing and make that really successful and move on. But it seems like you've been able to kind of get past that rule. And I'm interested, how did you focus? Because you're performing, right? You're running this podcast and you're trying to build the Toronto Magic Company.
I love that
How
question.
Did you balance all of that, and how has it worked out?
There's an entrepreneur who I love, who I've spent a lot of time chatting with. His name is Noah Kagan. And he said something really, really funny to me, which was, he said, you're worried about your project launching if instead of having one project, you have three. But three is actually, I think, right. the number that's actually closest to reality. And I don't know if that's crazy to you guys, but like, you often find that we kind of rush to do three, or we do one and then we do another. And I think why we do it is because we want like backups to make sure that like if something doesn't work, we didn't spend all of our time, put all of our eggs in one basket or something else like that. So I think that the reason why we do it is like, a good thing. I think it's so obvious if you look at the growth of these companies that they grew when I did less. They grew, like the Toronto Magic Company grew when I stopped having two other things that I was doing with all of my time. The podcast grew when I have one and only one product that I sell. It's the only thing. There's nothing else. And I don't even that's it, right? Done. So I think to answer the question, yes, doing one thing is probably the best way to grow. That being said, you don't know what you don't know, right? So when I started doing magic, I thought like, hey, I'm going to be a full-time magician. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. This is how it's going to work. It's going to happen this way. And then you start doing it and you learn all the ways that it is what you thought and all the ways that it isn't what you thought and whatever. So I think we slowly learn. We change what we want based on how easy or hard things are, or how they are what we thought or they aren't what we thought. So I'll say that like, how did I do it? I just juggling a lot. Hard work. Being afraid to kill certain stuff when it's not working. Not being afraid to. This is kind of a weird one, but I'm a big fan of putting things out before they're ready, because I think that like otherwise you never put it out. So I think like part of the reason why. Yeah, just like 100%.
Especially in magic.
Like, the growth that happens once you start doing a trick for real people versus sitting alone in your room is crazy. So obviously, like that's where the actual growth is happening. And similarly with the podcast, like guys, I put out like 250 episodes. They've been coming out every Thursday for like 5 years or something. They're not all going to be gems, right? Like they're not all going to be gems, but the fact that something comes out every Thursday and I haven't missed one for 5 years is better than me worrying about, is this a gem? Oh, is this the best episode? It could be that. No, I do interviews. Not every interview is the best interview. Some are phenomenal. Some are garbage. There's solo episodes. Some are phenomenal. Some are garbage. And that's kind of it. So I think my best answer is speed. Right? Like you move fast, you try things, and you don't get emotional about what works and what doesn't. You have to kind of remove yourself from the process, and then you can start dropping the things that don't work and keep doing the things that do. So I will say, if you're someone who's starting a project and you've got the wherewithal to do just one thing, amazing. But if you're like entering the world and you're excited about a lot of different stuff and you want to just try stuff. Like just try stuff. Like who cares?
Wow. Okay. So a lot to unpack there. Let me go through a couple of notes I actually took, which I don't. Maybe it's bad to admit this. I don't often take many notes, but I have a few there. So, actually, yeah, I like what you're saying about the speed. Well, one saying we have here at the Daily Magician, kind of like a company. I wouldn't say it's a motto, but it's just kind of a thing that we tell each other when we're feeling like, wanting to. I don't know. Maybe something's not quite gone as well as we wanted, or we want to try something new. And that is micro speed, macro patience.
Love that. I see you're a Gary Vaynerchuk fan.
Exactly. Exactly. I was just about to credit it, just for those who think I was stealing that for myself. It's such a good concept. And yeah, I mean, I was just going to point that out. I want to know. I will go back to some of the other stuff you talked about because I do have notes of it. But one thing I'm just curious about now is, what's the link? Like, how did you meet Noah? Because I think I know who you mean by Noah. That's the App Sumo guy, right?
Yep. So I am gutsy. So I like have no problem emailing people and asking for things. That's how I've interviewed Darren Brown and Teller, and like I got no problem asking for things, and I also have no problem endlessly following up with someone until they answer me. So what happened was I follow a lot of different entrepreneurs, Noah Kagan, Gary Vaynerchuk, a lot of other phenomenal people. And what happened was Noah posted on a video, and I do not watch YouTube. Nothing against it. It's just not part of my regular stuff. But I was tuning in and catching up, and he posted in probably 2018. But he posted his goals for the year. And one of his goals was to learn some close-up card magic. So I sent him a message. So first of all, I looked at all of his channels and I picked the channel that had the least number of followers on it, which at the time was Instagram, which he was posting on, and I knew it was him. So I just sent him a DM on Instagram and I said, hey, just want to let you know, maybe while we're talking, I'm going to see if I can scroll and go find the actual message. But I said to him, hey, just to let you know, every summer I tour summer camps all around Ontario, and I teach literally 3,000 kids how to do card tricks. I can teach you how to do card tricks for free over Skype. Just let me know, and we can schedule a fun session. So I sent him that message. He I guess I'm going to scroll through and find it because it's right here. Oh, here it is. Here, I'm just going to send it. I'm going to read it to you right now. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, go for it.
Perfect.
So
I said to him, cool. So I said, love the podcast. Totally my favorite podcast. And I listen to it a bunch. I'm a podcaster myself. I have some notes. And then I put in bracket, sorry, I don't use Twitter. Okay. And sorry, I actually totally screwed up. This first message that I sent him was because he was asking for feedback on the podcast that he had just launched. Okay. So he posted it on Twitter. So I sent him 5 notes of feedback. And I just said, love the intros and outros. And how you're getting emails for it. Keep the episodes 30 plus minutes. Leave the shorter things for YouTube. Great work on bettering your audio. Love the interesting guests. Remember, if you're ever in Toronto, you've got free tickets to a world-class magic show. And keep it all up. Love all your content. So then he replied. He said, let's do Toronto. Thanks for the note. I said, much love. Message you when you're in Toronto. That was November 11th, 2017. On November 12th, on January 12th, 2018, so 3 months later, I said, saw your video that one of your goals is to learn magic. I have a free podcast interviewing the best in the world called Discourse and Magic, if you want to check it out. I also teach about 2,000 magic students every summer. If you want to learn anything or have questions, I'd be happy to teach you Skype lessons, whatever, all for free. It would be my pleasure. That was it. So he said, want to do a Skype lesson, looking for a card magic to start. So we did a Skype lesson. I taught him some magic. And then at the end of the call, he said to me okay, we're both entrepreneurs here. How much is this going to cost? So I had a choice to make. I could have asked him for money because he's a successful entrepreneur. He started some 7-figure companies. So I could have, tried to come up with it. So instead, though, I said, let's do this. Instead of me charging you, how about for every hour session we do, I give you 50 minutes, 50 of magic help, and then you give me 10 minutes of business advice. And what was I really doing? I was just prioritizing the relationship over the cost, because what was I going to do? $100 an hour. He was going to do 10 lessons with me. I was going to make $1,000. Big whoop. So instead, we just continued to build the relationship. And then there eventually came a time where we were texting, whatever. And he's like, hey, I'm going to be in Toronto. And then he came out to Toronto. We connected. He came out to one of the shows. He had a good time. And then he flew me out to LA to do some shows. He flew me out to Austin to do some shows. And now we're friends. And he's awesome. I love his stuff. He's a great entrepreneur. I recommend anybody who is listening to this, go check him out on YouTube, Noah Kagan. He's been doubling and tripling down on his YouTube right now. And he's doing right now he does videos about how these big YouTubers are making all their money. So he just breaks it down bit by bit. And honestly, that's it. I reached out to him first time I reached out, I gave him some notes and asked for nothing in return. And the second time I reached out, I offered him something for free. And then the thing I asked for in return was like absolutely zero effort for him. And it started a relationship. That's basically it.
I interrupt this podcast to give a brief shout out to our website, thedailymagician.com. If you haven't already signed up for our daily emails that will give you great content just like this podcast, please head over there and sign up now. That's thedailymagician.com. We promise that we won't disappoint you.
Well, that's very useful. Is that a similar process that you would use on a, say, for example, like a podcast guest? And we're asking just purely selfishly here.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the big secret about the world of magic, which is that getting magicians to answer you is a joke. It's honestly a joke. Like, let me ask you guys, you've asked people to be on your podcast. What percentage of the people you've asked have said no? It's less than 5, right?
I don't think I'm trying to think if we've had any. Maybe
right.
One. Maybe,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So the answer is that like it's honestly harder to do in other industries because there's people that are like actually ridiculously protective of their time. In magic, the A+ are real hard to get. Everyone else is no brainer. Everyone else will enjoy it. So like there's probably maybe 20, 25 magicians, like legitimately, I'm not exaggerating. There's 25 magicians that are like legitimately hard to get in contact, to be able to like, you know, give you the time of day. And then everyone else is a no-brainer.
Yeah. It's kind of fascinating actually with that just talking business and this niche is the difference in it. Why do you think that is? I mean, maybe you have more experience. I guess maybe because, I don't know if it's just because it's a smaller niche or there's more artsy niche. So there's like less business minds in it. Or I don't know. Why do you think that this niche is so different?
Or you like share something that is unique, and then somebody reaches out to you and tells you that they actually like it, or they want to talk about it, or they have a question about it. Like, it's so mind-blowing, you know, like think like anybody, right? Like, think about like if somebody messaged you and told you like, hey, you know, I listened to the podcast, I love like in episode 5 when you said this thing. Like, it's just crazy, right? Like it's really cool. So obviously you're going to reply and be like, hey man, thank you so much for that thing. And for the most part in magic, we only hear of someone if we like their thing or they're doing something unique. And I think it's just a small enough fraternity that if somebody reaches out to you and honestly like makes it clear that they know your stuff, they know like what you do, they care about you, like it, you know, we've all in magic, we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Like anybody who is not learning from others in magic, their magic is trash, you know, like they don't know anything. Like, and I'm exaggerating, but not really, right? Like if you're not learning from the best books or great magicians or amazing videos or whatever it is, like you're screwed. So magic is built on us learning from each other. And I think it's just so ingrained in magic that like nobody is like too good to, or, you know, mostly nobody is too good to like share what they're doing. And for the most part, like, you know, the glamorous life that many magicians pretend they're leading is just like you guys know the Instagram fake life, you know, that everyone is faking. So like you know, it's not like I think that magicians are so busy and entrepreneurial that they're so protective of their time that they like. I just don't think that. I think for the most part they're just like bumming around and like waiting to book some gigs, like having fun, shuffling cards, and like someone reaches out and wants to do an interview or something. It's like, sure, no problem. That sounds great. Sounds like someone likes my stuff, you know, like, so that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. Cause I think often in magic you get, it's such an interesting niche in that you can get so deep into the niche that you sometimes forget to go out of the cave, right? And just sort of reorient yourself in like, okay, there is a world outside of magic. Because when you're so deep in magic, the people at the top seem like incredibly, like, you know, these are these celebrities. Like, this is Brad Pitt, you know? This is our version of Brad Pitt.
Literally, there's 12 of them. There's like 12 of them. And then everyone else is like completely and entirely, you can get in contact with them. You can chat with them. You can like it's like, you know, magicians love magic. Like, that's what I know. Magicians love magic. So if you're reaching out to them to talk about magic or what they've done or a collaboration or to learn from them or whatever, like, it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. And in general, I feel like people just like to talk about themselves. I mean, I guess you probably know that better than anyone after how many episodes you've done of Discourse in Magic.
Especially
Nobody
on a
doesn't like
podcast
talking
where
about
their
themselves
name
as
is
much as
on the
maybe they
front,
could be
you
done.
know?
Right. I think also one thing maybe that plays into it is
Yeah, exactly.
if you're doing the outreach and you're approaching it from I don't mean to quote Danny the Ortiz here, but from a magician point of view, of like, this is a magician that I respect, and you sort of see this gulf between your sort of level of magic and maybe this isn't true for you, maybe you're better than I am, Jonah, but like you think, wow, they're really good at magic, and you get intimidated by how good they are, that you forget to sort of, you're looking at it in that context rather than the context of like them as a person, like they're just a regular person, you know, they I don't know, maybe they sell some books, but it's not like they're this huge business. But just sort of on the qualia rather than the quantity of like, the magic is so good that you get intimidated. But
Yeah,
what's been helpful is just not thinking about it like that.
I also think that this is one of those things as well that is just true across industries. Like, you think like Elon Musk has an aura that glows around him when he's just like you and I. He like talks and hangs out, and he's a normal person. And like, you know, every single person that you meet is a normal person. Like, you know, every single person you meet is like a human being who's like more similar to you than they are different. So I think a lot of the times we think like, oh, you know, I'm going to meet, you know, like I flew to Madrid to interview Tamariz, and he welcomed me into his home, and it was like, you know, before we started recording or whatever, like, it was like a little awkward, you know, like just like if you went into the home of somebody who you didn't really know, and they're welcome, and they're asking you some weird questions about life, and you guys were kind of talking and you didn't really know each other, like, yeah, of course. And like, okay, so, you know, like, so I guess what I'm trying to say is like, we in our heads, no matter what the industry is, we build up that somebody is like this or like that, and that somebody, because they've accomplished this, they must be like this. And the reality is, no matter what level you are, like, they're basically human, like, not basically, you know, like, everyone's a human, you know, like, basically a human. No, but look, again, same thing like human. Teller, right? You know, like, I was thinking to myself, you know, like, Teller, you know, he's so busy and so like, you know, I'm so worried to be like, you know, using his time in this way or whatever. And during our episode, like, the tech crashed or whatever. And he like texted me. He's like, hey, is everything cool? Like, do we want to, like, of course he did. Because, you know, he's a human being, and we were having a conversation, and like, he's not going to rage quit. No mention there. But he's not going to like, you know, run away and say like, screw this guy and whatever. Like, he's a human being who is enjoying the fact that I am, you know, valuing his thoughts and opinions, and that I did my research and whatever. And yeah, he was a human being, just like every other person I've interviewed was a human being. And, you know, Darren Brown was a human being. And, you know, like, they're all human beings.
I'm not sure about that one.
I mean, he's a god. He's a god. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because we have noticed this idea of like, yeah, you can be, everybody seems like this incredible magician, and not that they're not incredible, but they also are, you know, like you say, human. And so we do a lot of work in copywriting and advertising, and one principle there is that, you know, like, again, like, psychology is psychology. If it works, it works. It doesn't really matter who the person is. Not in like a manipulative way, just that's how it is. And so we've had funny stories where, I guess we probably shouldn't mention names, but we've looked at like our email list or like recent, you know, leads that have gone to the email list, people that have maybe signed up for like a free magic trick we were advertising. And it's like, this is something that I just like came up with myself, and it's not like this crazy trick. I just came up with it, wrote some copy about it. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, do you see this, Jacob? Like, look, this guy's on the list. This guy clicked on the Facebook ad. He wanted to learn this trick. And again, I won't mention names, but it's like, I grew up watching this guy. It's like, what the heck? Like, my mentor learned from this guy, and he's just like hanging around on Facebook, sees this ad, and he's like, okay, I want that.
That's literally what it is. And I think that like, one thing that we think of in magic, which is just not true, is we think that there's like this pyramid where like there's the dozens of people at the top that are making it, and then everyone else is like, you know, using their stuff, and they at the top know everything. You know, the people at the top know 100%, and then the next group of people know about 80%, and then it keeps going down until you or I, who knows 30%. You know, like, and I think like, honestly, it's not true. For you to get to the top, what happens is you have to just be outrageously specific. So like, you know, let's use Darren Brown as a really good example. Darren Brown is just as intrigued about a cool billet switch as somebody else may be, because he's like, oh, wow, this is like a really cool invention that could be used. He doesn't know of every billet switch before it's been launched, right? Like someone can come up with an idea that he's never heard of before. It's not like all of his advisors or team have like come up with every single billet switch and it's done. And other people are just scraping the bottoms of the stuff he's already come up with. Like, I think anybody can create anything. Yes, I think, the more you learn, then when you create something, it's probably better chance that it's going to be better. But anybody can create anything, and we see it all the time. Like I think it was ended up cut out of the episode I did with Darren. I don't even remember, but he reached out. He like mentioned a magician who made this like weird billet switch. And then that magician reached out to me and he was like, hey, can you clip me out the testimonial so I can hear that from Darren? I didn't even know that Darren liked my stuff, right? So just as an example, I think that we think that if you're at the top, you know everything. And if you're at the bottom, you know nothing, and it scales all the way through. And it's honestly not the case. Yes, if you're at the top, you probably know a lot. And if you've never done any performing and you don't really, read any books, you probably don't know all that much. But I think that we can all learn from each other, and we all do. It's not like people that get to the top, like throw out their old magic books or anybody that they think is stupider than them. Like, I think we're all just still learning from each other.
All right,
Yeah, that actually, sorry, maybe you're going to say the same thing, Benji, but I think that's just like a principle that in general, I think it was, oh my gosh, dude, it's a copywriter's name that I always forget. Well, this time, Benji, can you remember? It's not Gary Bensavenga.
Dan Kennedy, I know him.
He's
great.
Dan Kennedy, yeah. So, yeah, there we go. Dan Kennedy, he gave a really good talk during the tie-ins. They had this massive event where a bunch of copywriters came together. And he talks about something where he said, I was asked him a question at one of these talks that he was giving that really intrigued him, where someone asked him,
Darren
it's kind of ironic who the person was, and I won't name it just because politics.
One in the advanced manipulation.
It was Darren Brown. Yeah. No, someone asked him at the convention.
It's not too out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, honestly, he probably has. Yeah. So anyway, Dan Kennedy gets asked this question, which is, what are like the 3 books you're reading right now? And like, which one, like, would you say is like been the most influential? And it's interesting because obviously Dan Kennedy is like best paid copywriter in the world for anyone who doesn't know. But this guy as well was also a super rich businessman that was asking him, which 3 books are you reading? First the question shows, well, he assumes that Dan Kennedy is reading 3 books because he is. And second, the question shows that you've never stopped learning, right? And I think that's a really important point, like that Jonah brings up, not just in magic, but in life. Like the people that stay at the top, or either are at the top,
Can I share
they
a
are
weird
constantly
thought experiment?
searching to learn more.
So one thing that, so I currently, I do a lot of coaching of magicians, helping them with virtual magic. And one of the like,
do you have a link for that?
If you want to chat with me about growing your virtual magic business, m.me/discourse and magic, and you'll start a little conversation with me on Facebook, and just type the word upgrade, and then I'll tell you all about that. But the reason I was saying this was because, right now, for the most part, I'm helping magicians who are not where I'm at. Let's just say that. But there are obviously magicians who may want my help, who have succeeded more than me, in many ways. And they want my help to grow in a way that I'm growing, to share the things that I know. And one of the questions I asked one of my coaches is, I was like, how do I in my right mind, as a fair, logical human being, charge somebody to help them with something when they have achieved it more? Like, for example, somebody who has been touring colleges all their life, maybe they've made $1 million, in the last 5 years or 4 years touring colleges. And I have a tip that they can raise their rates, right? I can help them I'm like, who am I to tell them how they can raise their rates when they've made $1 million in the last 4 years doing something that I have never, I haven't done 100 college shows in 1 year. So who am I to do that? So I was asking my coach this question, and I said, like, who am I to do that? And he said something really clever to me. He said, do you think that Oprah Winfrey's financial advisor makes more money than she does? And I was like, no, he does not, or she does not, right? Like, no, they do not. And part of that is, yes, if we all just look at the people who have the most money and ask them for advice, that's one thing. But who do those people go to get advice from. And what Oprah Winfrey knows about building a brand, she doesn't know about investing in the stock market or financial security or whatever, right? Like, so obviously she has a financial advisor that may not have made as much money as Oprah Winfrey has ever made, but that advisor does know things that she doesn't know that are going to be helpful for her to grow or to protect her assets or whatever the case may be. So just, positioning that into our conversation about magic, which is that, like, yes, people at the top have achieved incredible, great stuff, and that's wonderful. Does that mean they shouldn't read a book of somebody who has created something who has not achieved what they've achieved? No. How would they ever learn anything new, right? How would they ever, get better if they don't learn from the people that are making stuff right now? So I think that it's like, yes, we obviously don't want to give advice when we're not qualified to give it, but also, in the same sense, we shouldn't necessarily say that our outcomes are tied with our knowledge, right? There's so many amazing magicians who've created amazing stuff and have never performed a professional show in their lives. And I'm grateful that those magicians are creating, because half of my magic wouldn't exist if it wasn't for them.
Yeah, not to plug myself too much, but that is actually, I like to think of myself in that way where, I mean, obviously I perform, but it's not like my goal has never been, okay, let's go out and perform on America's Got Talent or these huge shows. It's more like, and the analogy I often use when we have guests on is like, almost like a scientist, right? Where you're in the lab, you're just cooking up ideas, and it's like, all right, you go run with that and do something with that. I don't have time for it, but like, here's this thing that I found that's kind of cool. I won't tell you how to use it, but just know that like this exists, and then go do something with that. And I think it's Aaron Fisher actually, who I learned a lot from. He has a way of categorizing magicians, which you have mechanics, people who love just practicing, doing the moves, kind of sitting at the desk. You have I can't remember them all. You have showmen, people who love going out performing, and you also have like thinkers, people who love just kind of like creating and coming up with ideas. And just because somebody's a bad mechanic doesn't mean they're not a good thinker, and just because somebody's 100%. A good thinker doesn't mean they're a bad showman, and so on 100%. And so forth. I don't actually know what the question was there, but I just wanted to jump on that because I thought that was a great point.
Well, you were talking about Dan Kennedy and him getting advice from others. I don't think there was a question. I just wanted to tell you guys about Oprah Winfrey. Yeah,
it was more. Yeah, anyway, it was more of a flow. Yeah.
Well, I didn't work with Oprah Winfrey or her financial advisor, so.
But if Oprah,
and I didn't work with Dan Kennedy, so
you have that old 1-2 DM trick.
Exactly, I know how to message her about it. And actually, to go full circle, you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk and Oprah Winfrey. Oprah's first post on Instagram is a photo of her and Gary Vaynerchuk together. There's a little factoid. There you go. There's a little trivia that you can win or lose some money on. I don't know how trivia works.
Yeah. All right. Well, actually, I'm interested. We do really want to talk about. Before we just move on from all of this, I feel like we put a nice bow on that. But I did want to go back in for just a second and ask you about kind of. I mean, we've heard a little bit about how your magical journey started. I want to know, how did this business journey start? Where did that come from? Because it's not very often that you see this combination of business-minded.
So just for my clarification, you're kind of asking how where the entrepreneurial excitement came to be?
Yeah, because there's a lot of we found.
Yeah, like where did it start? Like where did all of this begin?
It's kind of like this thing where like, oh, I love magic, but I have to do this in order to facilitate it, and it's kind of like this chore that they do. Whereas I get the vibe from you that you like this stuff and you enjoy it. So
100%. So I guess the first thing that I'll say is that I like magic, but it's not I don't love it. I mean, I love it, but I don't love it. Like, let me explain. It's been many years since I've stayed up till 3:00 in the morning working on a trick. It's been I was in my teens the last time I did that. And again, like you were talking about the classifications of magicians, I don't practice. I don't practice. Like when I would perform in the real world and now in the virtual world, I know that I can do the trick. Basically, I maybe will run through it a handful of times to make sure I have the mechanics. I'll know the premise in my head. But basically, it takes 10 live performances, and then I've got it. And then I've got something to edit and work with. And again, I don't I don't write out in great detail scripts and I don't. I love the action of being in performance. To me, that's electric and it's so much fun. But my favorite type of performance is like a table style show where I get to just interact with everyone and look at everyone and joke with them and play with them. And I'm more of a fan of like raising and releasing tension, like in a show. And you guys know what I mean as magicians, right? Like I'm way more interested in the conducting of a group, to react all as one unit and to have that like experience together than I am about like the mechanic of the move that it is that I'm doing. So let me just put that part out of the way first, because now I'll get you into kind of how I got into the entrepreneurship thing, which is I was in school for math, getting a math degree. And that was awesome and wonderful. And during that time, I would listen to podcasts. And the one that I found that I really, really enjoy is a podcast by Pat Flynn. Have you guys heard of him?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard of the podcast. I must admit, I haven't actually listened to
All good. So Pat Flynn's podcast is called Smart Passive Income Podcast. And the term passive income is like evil online, because like anybody who says the word passive income or Forex or day trading is like probably a huckster, and like they're probably trying to steal your money. Pat Flynn is like as wholesome of a person that I've ever even heard of in my life. Like he's just positive and wholesome and open and welcome and like he's just amazing. Like really, really, really positive. And his stuff is like, hey, there's no like get rich quick scheme. There's no like anything else like that. But what passive income is defined as is like doing the work up front so you can benefit from it later. And you guys know it, right? You guys are building an email list for a podcast, and I don't even know if you're selling anything. Who knows? Maybe in 3 years you will. Who knows? Maybe in a year, maybe not. Who knows? But you're just worried about building the relationships now. And then later you may do something. So that was kind of the hook for me. And like, it's almost like I went to university for math, and then my night school or my the rest of my time was listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast, listening to, I think it was called the Successful Performer Cast, which is a magician podcast. And there was a few other ones. And basically what happened is I was like, oh, it was legit not going to be that hard to be a professional magician. Like just legit, it's not going to be that hard. Like I can send out hundreds of emails using software. I can reply to people. I can hire people to help me. I can it honestly can't be that hard. And when I graduated university, I told Ben Train, who I run the Toronto Magic Company with, he was asking me about kind of what I was doing. And I said, if all I do is work on my magic business as hard as I'm working to get this math degree, it's impossible that it fails, right? Like it's impossible. Like I'm putting like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day learning stupid math. Like it's impossible that the thing fails. So I think my love became entrepreneurship. I've always been an entrepreneur. Like, when I was a kid, I used to make jewelry and sell it to raise money for charity, and like I did I shaved my.
Yeah. That sounds a lot better than I did, because I would go down to the corner shop, buy chocolate, and then sell it at a larger price at school.
I used to.
I'm glad that you're making money.
I would raise money and shave my head and donate all the money to cancer. So I was just like, I was ingrained in this like hustle thing. Like I had no problem hustling and asking people for stuff and selling things. And like, I just had no problem with it. And what ended up happening was that being a professional magician was the avenue for me to explore entrepreneurship. And now basically, let's call it 10 years after I kind of thought seriously about doing magic as a profession. Now, as you can tell, like the two things I do is a podcast, which is me not being a professional magician, and then operating of a magic company, which aside from the performances, which are wonderful, but the bulk of what I do is operate a business, manage a team, do copywriting, like, all of these different things that I've fallen in love with. So I guess magic is the medium. I love magic. I don't want to make it seem like I don't like magic. I absolutely 100% love it, but I don't buy any magic tricks anymore. Like I read maybe 2, 3 magic books a year if they like really, really excite me. Like they have to blow my mind. Just for the most part, like I don't even learn more than 5 tricks a year. Like, and maybe that's an exaggeration, but like for me to add an actual trick to my repertoire is like, it almost never happens. Like maybe, obviously there was a big change with virtual, but even with virtual, 50% of the stuff in our show is just versions of stuff that we did in real life. Right. Like, so I think that my first love was magic. Obviously I spent 20 years just absolutely absorbed into loving it. I still do, but I think that my love is operations, copywriting, all of that different stuff. That's like my new love, and magic is the field in which I get to kind of have fun and explore all of those things. And I'm very, very grateful that, Ben, I run the Toronto Magic Company with him, and he still, we're similar a little bit in this way, but, he extra loves magic, like he shows up at random online jams, and he we'll talk about unconventional.fun, but we've got an upcoming virtual convention, and he messaged every single person in the lineup. He decided what would be a great lineup for a virtual convention right now. He's got hundreds of relationships in the industry, and he's friends with these people. He loves jamming with them and share. Like he messages, magicians who you think are like A++ magicians, and they call to jam, to hang out with Ben and jam and whatever. And I honestly, I couldn't care less. Like I couldn't spend 2.5 hours jamming out on a mechanic. Like I honestly couldn't. So I guess the answer is I used to love magic and like entrepreneurship, and now I like magic and love entrepreneurship.
I love it. I if I can, I think it's kind of interesting. I love your entrepreneurial journey, and I love your magic journey as well. And I just kind of want to, I don't know if as we're getting towards the end of this podcast, I'm sure Benji has a few more questions, but I just wanted to kind of summarize for everyone, if I can. Please, obviously, jump in, Jonah, if I say anything that you don't think is true. But what I'm getting from you, and if I was going to take some of the biggest lessons I've learned during this hour and 25 minutes that we spent together, is that you're definitely someone that just gets up and goes. And I love that you didn't panic, right, when it came to, as far as you could have, maybe entrepreneurial convention would have told you to drop, or maybe to never start
Toronto. I assume
Orlando,
I didn't start the
Magic
Orlando
Company, right? Or Toronto. Sorry,
your branding is
Orlando. What am I saying?
Jacob remembered it.
That was me. No.
Well, the second 2 words, I'm just all good.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Orlando.
I don't know why I said Orlando. It's because we're going to go to. That's Disney. It's because we're going to Disney soon. That's why it's in my head. Anyway, back to the point. Okay, you anything could have told you, right, not to do that, right, to start those two together, or to do, not to start Discourse in Magic. Everyone, especially in kind of, I don't want to annoy anyone, but kind of in American culture, at least what I've noticed, is it's a lot of high pressure to go to university to get your degree. You kind of need a master's to do whatever it is. Anyone would have told you not to live with your parents, all of those things, but you decided that's what you wanted to do, and you hit it hard, and you did it straight away. And I really respect that. And I love that you, as we talk more, I kind of get this, I love that impression that you give off. And even with this unconventional fun, it's I'm just going to do it because I want to, and I'm going to do it because I can, and because I know that I will put 100% effort into making sure that works. And I think that's a really inspiring message, your career so far, and just your brand in general is, for everyone that's listening, if it's something that you want to do, just get out and do it, because I think Jonah's a great example of someone that's seen the success of that. He's met, you talk to, I'm sure when you started Discourse of Magic, you didn't think, or maybe you did, tell me if you did, but
I think
I'm going to land
when Tyler and I started,
Teller
we were
and
joking
Darren
about
Brown.
that. Maybe one day we'll interview Teller, that
right,
was
exactly.
It was a joke. And
yeah.
I honestly think here's a little a quote, and this is one that's been bouncing around on the internet for a little bit. Noah Kagan says this a bunch as well, which is just do anything for 10 years and you'll be successful. And what a funny way to think about it, right? The podcast is whatever it is, 5 years old or something, whatever. And maybe in the last 2 years, it started to be fiscally successful, right? And like for it to really, really succeed, it'll probably take another 3 or 4 years, right? Like just in the reality, same as the Toronto Magic Company's been around for like 4 years, and like, yeah, we had some wins and that's great and whatever, but like you got to keep your head down and you got to work on the thing and do the thing and iterate and do it over and over again and do it over and over again, and like that's it. There's no secret. Like nobody is going to tell you like, oh, you want to know the real secret to doing magic? Oh, here it is. Let me tell it to you. Here it is. You got to put your pinky in. There is no secret. The secret is you do it and 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 do it. There's no secret. I wish that there was. There's not. You do it, you learn, you edit, do it again.
Sometimes people think, the secret is figuring out which path to go down, when really the secret is figuring out how long you can carry on going down the path without giving up, and just so on and so forth, kind of like you were saying, until you do meet that success. And
one of the big challenges of life, and I heard this on a TikTok. What a weird sentence. So, he said that like one of the challenges of modern life is that we've heard our parents and communities and whatever tell us over the last however many years that we can do anything and we can accomplish anything. And the reality is it's true. Here's the challenge. The challenge is that for you to achieve success in a thing, you have to not do a whole bunch of other things, right? And like, I can tell you guys something weird. I am ridiculously good at writing lyrics. Yeah. And you didn't see that coming. I know you didn't. But like literally, I can freestyle better than like when I watch somebody freestyle, like rap, like I'm like, they are garbage. They are garbage. Right. Like there's maybe a handful of people that are really, really great. And like, I can literally do it better. I used to do it with my friends. If you gave me a tune, I could write lyrics about this podcast episode that we did in record time. Why am I telling you all of that? That I have this secret skill that I have. Why am I telling you that? Because in another life, I maybe wrote lyrics for Broadway musicals. But unfortunately, I don't have enough time in my day to run 2 companies and write lyrics. I do not have the time. So I had to say, you know what? I think I probably am going to have a better, more fun career in magic and entrepreneurship and podcasting than I am in lyric writing, because there's less people doing it and I like it more and it's more fun for me and da-da-da-da-da-da and all these different stuff. And that's why I don't write lyrics. Do I sing songs that I make up on the spot around my house, and people like my girlfriend and my roommate or whatever are just like, how did you come up with that? That's crazy. Yes, it's like a magic trick for them. And still, I will never be a lyric writer ever in my life because I know that I can't put 10 years into it ish, more or less. Like I can put a couple weekends into it. I can write a fun thing if it's fun, but I can't put 10 years into it. So it's not how I'm spending my time.
Yeah. And there's just on that angle, there's when I was learning copywriting, I guess I still am, I shouldn't say when I was, I totally still am learning it, but there's a guy, maybe you're familiar, Ben Settle.
As we are learning. Of
course. I used to get his emails every day until I was sick and tired of it.
How long did that take? How many years?
A year.
Oh, okay.
Do you get his emails every day?
I get his newsletter.
Yeah, that's what I mean. His email newsletter. Oh. He sends it daily.
No. But I get his physical.
Oh, you're subscribed to his.
Yeah. I'm like a.
Do you like it?
It's done great things for our business, so I want
awesome
results.
Good to hear. That's good to hear.
Anyway, no, yeah, he says in one of his
really
books. Maybe he's quoting someone else. You generally the first, I don't know, maybe for Ryan, the first 500,000 words you write are gonna suck. So just write them as fast as you can. Maybe it wasn't 500.
Oh, I love that.
It's a big number.
That's great.
Yeah. And maybe it's
you want me to give you an example? You guys just did an episode with John Gustafaro, yeah?
Yeah.
He's awesome. He's super talented. When I did the episode with Tyler, the introduction that we made to the episode, we made a pun that makes no sense. I literally was like, this is the recording of the intro. I'm gonna dummy it for you. I literally went, hey, Tyler, it looks like it's cold outside. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of snow there. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, what a gust of wind. I'm like, oh, yeah. And there's like, oh, there's a gust of far snow. And they were like, oh, well, now that we made that pun, let me introduce you to this episode. Like, guys, the stupidest freaking intro in my life. I still regret it to this day. But if I spent my life trying to go back to the old stuff and re-edit all the words that I said that I regret, I would honestly never be able to finish it. So like I said at the beginning, like, was every single episode I've done an absolute astounding success? No, I put my foot in my mouth so many times that, I know the taste of feet. You know what I mean? But I think that part of it is just like that. Yeah, I'm grateful that the episode I did with Teller happened in the last 12 months and not in the first 12 months, because the episode I did with Patrick Kuhn was brutal. I asked horrible questions and it was brutal. So, I think that I love that advice. The first 500,000 words you write are going to be crap. Or another way to say it is like, every next thing you do will probably be a little bit better than the last thing.
Why would you not just relentlessly do as many as you can?
Yeah, and like thinking about it like a stock market chart where like when you zoom out, or let's say S&P 500, just like when you zoom out, the line goes up. But when you zoom in, like, okay, maybe it went up now, and then it was down. This one was better, then this one was worse, and like whatever. But overall, the line goes up, right? So no, I don't know that episode 13 was twice as good as episode 6. Like that's not the case, but certainly episode 200 was eons better than episode 20. Like no brainer.
Yeah, there's a good inspirational quote about, well, I can't remember exactly who it was from. I think it was again from that Titans thing that we watched, Bench. But it was talking about even if you just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to improve by 1% every week this year. If you think about that by the end, and that sounds so small, right?
Like
everyone can say, like, okay, maybe I can improve by 1%.
37
right?
times, I think. Oh no, sorry. I think it was 1%
each week,
day,
50,
and then by the end, 37 times better, not 37%.
Yeah,
I mean, you can check on math.
37 times better, which is
let me run the
yeah.
Yes, it checks out. Yes, that was right. Wow.
Hit it.
I actually thought that was you tapping a calculator.
Wow.
Now it's just me running my nails on the table, just pretending.
But I mean, yeah. It's anyway. Where were we? So yeah, the thing about starting. Yeah. So it's weird, how people get this thing like, oh, I don't want to start that because I'm not good at it. It's like, duh. Like.
Yeah, of course
you're not going to get good at it until you do however many. So even with this podcast, probably the first 100, we're not even going to get that good until a certain level. And so I'm sorry, Jonah, you happen to be in the first. You literally.
I'm hurt. That while you guys still suck, I'm a part. No, I'm just kidding. You guys are awesome. This has been really, really epic so far. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man.
By the way, I'll give you a funny little story about people not
next time we'll have a pun.
Not doing things. I help a lot of magicians right now with their virtual magic, and it's so funny when I hear somebody say to me like, now it's like we're recording this in February of 2021, and they're like, I'm still working on the show, right? Mm-hmm. And the joke that I posted online maybe the other day is I said like, if it takes you 2.5 years to write your virtual magic show, you missed it. You missed it, right? And I mean, hopefully, right. This whole thing wraps up, and obviously, there may be virtual, there may be a hybrid, or whatever the case may be, but like you missed it. And anybody who is saying to me like, hey, I'm thinking of starting to write my virtual, or here's a good one I got. Somebody said to me, they're like, I've now written my 3rd virtual show. I'm going to be writing one more, and then I want to start selling tickets. And I'm like, huh? Like what? Like what on earth could you be talking about? Like the best magicians on the planet do the same show over and over and over again. And like, just go do it. Do the show. Do it. Eventually it'll be better. Just do the show. Like, I almost have like, when people tell me they're working on something, I almost am like pissed. Like, I'm almost like, just do it. What are you working on? What does that even mean? Like, what are you working on? And like, a lot of the times I'm wrong. A lot of times people are actually working on stuff, but a lot of the times like I'm working on means nothing. It means it's sitting there. I more or less have the confidence to do it, but not really. And maybe one day I will have the confidence to actually start doing this thing. And I'm like, please just do it. Just start it. Please.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. The analogy I heard about this, again, this is from the same podcast, My First Million. I think everyone should listen to it. It's a good podcast. It's fun. and they were talking about the time at like, if you're getting offered a job at maybe like an early stage startup, and people have this weird thing where they sort of bicker and like try and like negotiate exactly what role they get and the title they get. And it's like, bro, if you're being offered a seat on a rocket ship, if you're getting the chance to go on a rocket ship, don't ask which seat, just like get on it. So as long as it's like, just get on. And maybe it's the same thing as a virtual. I think that's what you're saying. It's like, dude, like don't worry about exactly which seat you're sitting on, just like get on the rocket, otherwise you're gonna miss it,
Yeah, the same as like people like investing $10,000 in their virtual setup before they've done one show. And I'm like, huh? Like, do the show and then you'll know what you need, right? Like, isn't it obvious? One of the jokes I've been telling for a long time, not a joke, but you guys will get it, is that the hardest job ever on the planet to do is an astronaut. And the reason is because by the time that you actually get to go to space, if you don't like it, it's too late. Right? And obviously it's a joke, that, they do all their like tests and stuff, whatever. But like, if you're in the rocket on the way up to space and then you realize you're claustrophobic, then it's too late, right? Like like you've already spent your whole life working on the thing. So why do I say that is like, we all don't have to be astronauts. We don't have to like secretly work on something for 10 years before we actually do it or show it to anybody or whatever. Instead, we can just like do the thing and then, eventually, like we can try going to space. And then if we like it, we can keep going to space. And if we don't like it, then we stop going to space. So like in the virtual magic example, it's like, if you want to do virtual magic, hey, do one. If you liked it, do more. If so, invest in your stuff. If you don't like it or it wasn't good or whatever, great news. You just saved yourself a whole bunch of money.
What is, I guess in a big way, like what is the point of magic to you? Like why should people do magic? Why do you continue to do magic? I know that you've said, you do it less than you did, but
because it's
what do you think the point of magic
we talked about opportunity cost, and you talked about how you could have done that lyric thing. And I guess it's just this, but broader, like for the whole niche, like magic as a thing, why should people do magic when they could use that mental effort doing some of that?
So maybe I'll give you the deep answer and then I'll give you the shallow answer. The deep answer is that I think that magic offers something that other arts do not, which is the opportunity to have the rug of life pulled out from under you. And I'm going to do a lot of paraphrasing of Garrett Thomas because I think that he expresses this stuff very clearly. But he says most of the time in life when our world is shook, when our world is shaken and we have to reevaluate the way that we think things work, it's usually speaking a negative. Somebody in our family dies and we think about that we're not spending enough time with our family, or we put all of our money in GameStop and then we realize that where we should actually be getting advice from on the internet, or whatever million other different things that happens. Usually it's like a rude awakening, right? And what magic is it's an opportunity for you to have an awakening, have a get shook, without your life drastically changing. And it's kind of a safe environment. It's kind of like falling, free falling, but in a safe environment. So the like, intellectual answer that I have for this is like, I think there will always be magic because I think that magic offers something that other arts do not, which is being fooled. And I think that it honestly like does something to a person that other arts really, really, really do not offer in a quite serious way. I think blowing someone's mind with a magic trick is quite possibly earth-shattering. I mean, not every trick, some tricks are comedy magic and some tricks are whatever, but like it is earth-shattering in the world right now that we can just Google absolutely everything. And then all of a sudden something happens that you legitimately do not understand. It's not real because the guy was joking about fart jokes while he was doing it, but he did it. So that it kind of happened. I think that's a real positive for people, especially right now, like QAnon, like anybody who's on QAnon is not a critical thinker. You know what I mean? So like, to have people realize that what they know about the world could be wrong and all that stuff is, I think, really, really important. That all being said, I think magic is fun. I think it's great. I love anybody who dedicates their life to like medicine, or whatever the case may be. But you know what doctors do after the end of a long workday? They go and watch a Marvel movie, and it was an artist that made that, right? Or they go and see a magic show, and it was an artist that made that. And fortunately, and I didn't study art theory, but I recommend, if you guys are going to be asking this question to everybody, that you do study some art theory, which is that art shows up in a society after the society has achieved a certain level of stability, that now there is a, like a positive, fun thing that is not necessarily directly for, the economics. You can think of like how many less museums and paintings there are in countries that are struggling, right? So I think that like I'm very fortunate to be living in a time and in a space where art is valued. Virtual is a really, really concise example where like, you have a company who spent the last 8 months working from home. Everybody from the CEO to the accountant, like just despises life, like, I mean, not necessarily, but it's certainly worse off for many people than it was when they were in the office. And now the company needs more than ever some sort of fun entertainment. It could be an escape room. It could be a wine tasting. It could be like a virtual magic show. They need something to give their people, to show them they care, to give them some fun, to wake them up, da-da-da-da-da-da. So I think we are still serving a need. I think that, the stuff that we do, people like and people want. We are not just peddling nonsense. I mean, maybe some of you are, but I think that when somebody sees a show that I put on, it solves a need, whether that need is a break from reality or a little bit of happiness or to shake their world or whatever it is. I think it serves a need. And we're fortunate to be living in a society where, art makes a lot of money. Art makes a lot of people happy. The amount of money that, and I'm using Marvel as an example because it's gargantuan, but also because I'm butchering a Stan Lee quote about how like, artists are the people that, art is so critical in the world, music and all this different stuff, that no matter how much you're working on, no matter what incredible things you're accomplishing, you're probably engaging in some sort of art. So I think that we're fortunate enough to live in a society that what I do is actually valuable. And I don't think that for us to say like, hey, is what I'm doing less valuable than being a doctor? I don't know. It's a hard question to ask. AI seems to be able to do the job of a doctor better than they can. So, I'm not really sure. But then again, doctors save people's lives and I do card tricks. So I think that like, I don't want to walk around thinking that as a magician, I am doing a fun, random, playful, silly, stupid thing for work instead of something real and valuable, important. I don't think that that's a good view of it. Yes, I understand I could have spent my time being an analyst for a whatever and making more money for some suit or something else like that. Like, that's totally fine. But I think for me, very, very fortunate that I think we live in a society where art is valued and it's important, and I'm happy to be a part of that journey for people. Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. As always, if this was fun for you, share it. Tell a friend. It means the world. And if you liked the episode, go check out the other episodes of Sleights and Men. They've got incredible episodes with incredible magicians, some that I have, so you can kind of dig in more, and some that I have not interviewed, so you can dig into people who you haven't even met. More magic podcasts, even better. Hope you like it. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next Thursday. Peace.